when we start these because like when I look back at it after it's recorded, the first like several seconds is like missing. I'm always like, "What's up, everyone?" and then it's not
Right.
there. So anyways, what's up, everyone? It's Brian with special
Hey.
guest Colm here with Dignified Home Loans, and we're going to be going over the market and everything that's going on. So, Colm, how are you?
Hey, it's things are going great. It's Sunday, it's sunny. The Ventura County Fair is going on down the street. We just had the X Games. Parking is a mess, but things are going well. Yeah, I'm
Did you
happy that
go?
it's summer and we're finally getting that weather that we pay for, right? So,
Have you gone to the fair or the X Games yet?
no.
I went with my son to the X Games, and it was kind of the worst because you had to pay a ton of money to get the seats where you could see anything with the kid. So we didn't know that, but we still ended up spending like half the day there because they had like little kid BMX bikes that they could ride. And so like took my 3-year old and I'm like, "Are you sure you can handle it?" And they're like, "Of course he can." And it was awesome.
Oh, good. Good, good, good. Okay, I thought it was going to be some kind of horror story, but no.
No, it
It
was a
sounds like you had a
great
good time.
event. I loved it. It was that was a highlight of the week, I think.
Good, good, good. Okay. Yeah, me and crowds and just all that stuff, I'm just not really into it, but maybe
For
for the
sure.
kids. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. If it wasn't for my son, I don't think I would have gone.
Yeah.
So when we look at the market on these
My
market,
dog's saying hello here, so sorry.
absolutely special guests, right?
Yeah.
So for the folks sitting at home, the big reason Colm is here is because as a real estate agent, it's really interesting to look at like what my clients are doing because like as a buyer, you really only know what you're doing, but your agent knows what like a couple buyers are doing, right? Because we're not working with like a million buyers at the same time, but there's a couple. But then we partner with the lenders, and so the lenders not only have a different perspective because they are providing the financing and everything to do with being a lender, but also you're working with a lot of agents. So a lot of times, in a lot of ways, the lenders have maybe not as much of like the nitty gritty details down, but you have a lot more of the broad idea of how stuff is going, at least compared to the realtors a lot of the time.
Right, right. As far as what's happening with rates and what's happening with the financial markets, for
I mean,
sure.
not even just that, but like, what are buyers doing right now? Because like I'll know some, but sometimes, again, you're doing more deals than I am a lot of the time, right? So
Sure.
you have a pretty good perspective on like what stuff is working and what stuff isn't too.
Right. Well, I mean, in 2022, we definitely things were shifting a little bit or correcting to where it was like buyers had a little bit more power.
Mhm.
Um, but I think we've fully gone back to more of a seller's market, uh, multiple offers, and things moving pretty fast. Depending, right? It depends on the price point and everything. But yeah, there's buyers are still struggling just because of the lack of inventory. Um, and I just saw a report that the inventory we expected to come on market didn't. So that's still a huge challenge. And especially so for first time home buyers who are trying to get into a home.
Let's take a look at that. So let's see, where'd we go? This guy? How about I just share my window? That's what I want to do. Share my window. It's going to look a little funky for a second. And ta-da. So here's our market update for July. We always look at last month's numbers because this month hasn't happened yet. And what we are typically expecting in the summer is everything to grow, especially for July and August. Those tend to be the biggest growth booming
Right.
months out of the
You have
year.
that seasonal change. Yeah.
Right, right. So, before we even look at it, what we're expecting is inventory to go up, prices to go up, sales to go up, everything to kind of go crazy. And then after August, it tends to kind of fall back down going into January, and then it comes back up. But that's not really what's happened. If you look at our number of listings, we can always look at the new listings and the active listings, which is important. But the sold listings really is the story. There's only 462 sold compared to 511 last month. And normally that goes up. So, it's very weird to see that number going down in July. Our listing prices, our median list price actually went down. Last month it was 856. This month's 840. So again, a very uncharacteristic shift there.
And that's for the whole county? Is that
This is
what you're looking
countywide. Yeah,
at? Okay.
countywide. And again, we can always look at like the sold average sale price. I mean, average sale price I hate because we're just diverse county because we have like $100,000 construction homes
Right.
and like $10 million places. So the median I think is the much better picture than compared to the average.
Sure.
List price is just dreamers. It is kind of fun seeing that the average list price or the median list price is 969 and then the median sales price is 840. So a lot of dreaming sellers out there.
Sure. Sure. Still thinking it's the 2021 market.
Absolutely. Our absorption rate is shifting as well. Like there's some debate on what exactly a healthy absorption rate is. So the absorption rate means that if we stop listing homes today, how long would it take for us to completely sell out of homes? Typically, most experts agree that the healthy market is somewhere between 4 and 6 months. As
Right.
it goes down, it's a stronger market. As it goes up, it's a stronger buyer's market. So countywide, we're seeing a stronger buyer's market than we've seen, but
Okay.
it's still only 2 months supply, right? So still a very
Right.
strong seller's market, but it seems like the worst of it was going to be back in like April, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Sold.
What agents have been telling me that, yeah, it's definitely still very much a seller's market. But yeah, that's the absorption rate will tell you something there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But again, it's right. It's not, and it's been softening again since like April.
Yeah.
The sold to list ratio, again, it's a little more telling because like way back when we were in like November, December, the sellers were getting beat up a little more. So we're at like 95%, now 100.8%. So homes still are on average selling slightly higher than asking, not a lot, but slightly. And
Right.
one of our biggest metrics is going to be days on MLS, which have been going down. So stuff is selling faster, right?
Right. Right. And when things are going faster, it's yeah. It as I said, it's not the best for those first time home buyers because they can't compete really when things are
Right.
moving that fast.
So, month over month is interesting because again, we have months that we're expecting, but also year over year is very interesting. So, year over year absorption rate is about the same as it was last year, 1% change, but it's still basically two, right?
Right. Right.
Average list price, again, list prices I don't care much about because it's the dreamer amount. What we really care about is the sales price. The average sales price is slightly different, but again, there's so many luxury properties that make that different.
Sure. It
A
kind of
4% change isn't
skews things to
really,
one side. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's not really a significant big difference, even on the average. But when we look at the median, it's the exact same. It's a 0.1% price reduction. This time last year it was 840. I'm sorry. This time last year was 840, 883. This year it's 840.
Okay.
So
Super close.
it's the exact same, which is really, really, really weird. Okay, and I'll talk about that in a second. But and our average days on market have gone up, but our median days on market is down, right? So most homes are selling pretty quick, but we do again have a lot of dreamers on the market that think their home is worth a tremendous amount and are just not moving, right? But
Right.
the median home is selling quicker than it did this time last year.
And so what like I talked to you about this the other day on the phone, Zillow's predictions, right?
Right.
And we were talking about how, they just want clicks but someone else came out with their home value predictions. I forget who it was. And they're also calling for a pretty big gain. So what are your thoughts
Well,
on that?
Well, first of all, like I said, it's really weird for prices to not go up in the summer. So, I mean, you didn't do this on purpose. It sounds like it's a really convenient segue here.
Segue, yeah.
But one of the things that was really bothering me was if I look at this compared to 2016 or to 2018, okay, which I consider a more regular year. At the time, we're like, oh my gosh, stuff is exploding. This isn't normal. It's going so fast. But it did that from like 2014 until like 2019. And then we had pandemic weirdness, which was a whole separate level. So I consider like 14 to 19 to be more average-ish years. And when we look at this same time back in 2016, it was 16 or 18, 2016, our median sales price went up 5.7%, right? When we looked at August of 2018, August, not July, We can look at August. It's fine. It's close enough. Our median sales price went up 2.5%, right?
Right.
So this, when I looked back at this, since I want to say 2015, 2016, this is the first year that we have had that we haven't had a price increase in July. So, are we in for a boom? No, because it seems like the prices are going, I mean, not going down because they haven't gone down, but it hasn't grown for the first time in a very long time. And the other really, really telling part here is if I look down here at sold listings, and we can look at all the different metrics for active and what have you. But for sold listings, if we're comparing 2023 to, this isn't like a super easy way to look at this, but our number of sold listings was only 462 compared to 636, right? We're down 27% in our sold listings. So, one of the things that's bothering me the most right now is what
Mortgage rates.
well, I mean, there's mortgage rates too, but I mean, even those are relatively steady. We can talk about that in a minute.
Steady, yeah.
In a minute. But like with the prices being steady and all of these other metrics being relatively steady this time of year, it almost always goes down in the winter, right? So, are we going to see a significant decrease? And one of the big important things to me is that people have to move. There's a certain percentage of people that don't have to move, right? But there's a tremendous number of people that have a family that is growing or shrinking, whether that's kids going out or someone passing away. And they have
Divorce,
to do
death,
something.
yeah, all that
Exactly.
stuff.
And they have to do something with their home. So, is I think we're just bottling up that demand because a lot of people are like, maybe I should, aren't doing it right away.
Right.
So, to kind of talk about that same trend here, this is from Keeping Current Matters, and all these little graphs are probably super small on your guys' screen. If you want the big one, the big version, let me know and we can always send it over to you. But this is the total listing count in Ventura County. And this is the national trend. So nationally, we were pretty close until we hit, I think that's June of last year. And then
when rates really shot up, yeah.
Yeah, but while the rest of the country kind of, their total listings hung up there, ours hasn't. We're really down, right? At least compared to average. Average listing count is the same thing. We kind of have the same shape, but whether you want to say out here we had way more listings or out here we have way fewer listings, it's tough to say. New listing count, we're pretty close, right? So it's mostly our active and our total that's different. Pending, we're pretty close. Our median listing price is kind of following national trends. Price per square foot, again, kind of on track. Median days on market, we're like totally on track. Price reductions, though, is really one of the biggest differences. We are seeing way fewer price reductions. And I think that's because of up here, we have way fewer listings. So they don't have to reduce because
supply and demand. Yeah.
So, when we're comparing ourselves to the national trends, obviously we're not going to follow it, but we are going to be in the same neighborhood because a lot of the nation is going to follow us. But what I wonder is, how many people had, a death in the family or have a kid and now they're hanging on tight and they're going to need to move. They're going to need to sell at some point. And, if we do have a sudden spike where all of these, active listings start showing up, if we actually did follow this trend and there were that many listings, I think we would see prices going down because right now we're stable. So, I mean, there's no way to know if people will, but that's kind of $1 million question. What happens when people do decide to move?
Sure. And I mean, this is the tricky thing. The market is so weird right now because people are sitting on those sub 3% mortgage rates.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want to sell to take on a 7%, and sellers are buyers, right? So I'm
on the fence on that
tricky.
though. I mean, there's obviously a significant percentage of savvy people, right? Like
Right.
there's going to be the investors that are like 30% of buyers and some smart people in the mix. But the vast majority of at least individual home buyers, like single family home buyers, they don't really care about the market that much. I mean, they do, but they had a kid and they need to upgrade from a 2 bedroom to a 3 bedroom, and
Sure.
rates be damned. Maybe they'll rent it out, maybe they'll Airbnb or
But I
something like
think they're
that.
still waiting because they're like, they don't want to be seen as the fool, right? Like when everybody's telling them, mainstream media, etc., that,
Yeah.
oh, your rates are crazy right now, you'd be a fool. So it's very
Well,
hard to get those people off the fence and understand that when rates do come down, it's going to be a bonanza again. And so it's like
well,
pick
let's talk about that
pick your
too, right?
poison in a way.
Because a tremendous number of people are, well, actually, before we talk about that too much, how are the rates doing?
We're hovering right below 7 national average. Obviously, it's going to be your rate depending on, I think there's
Right.
like 26 different factors that go into this thing, your credit score, all that stuff. But right around 7 is where we're at. We've been kind of in that area, right below 7, a little bit above 7, for going on a couple of months here. Things are still pretty volatile, but we've been hovering right around there.
So, I mean, it's kind of a conflicting sentence here because, like, on one hand, it is volatile in that it could change tomorrow, but on the other hand, it's been relatively stable, right? I think we've been about 7 for at least a month.
Yeah, it's been relatively stable compared to the last year or so, where it's just been all over the place.
Right.
We had that historically unprecedented rise from 3% to above 7% in like a 6-month period.
Right.
And the Fed we still don't know if they're going to raise the Fed rate again. They've slowed it down. They only did a 25 basis point hike the last time. But they've stated that, we need to see inflation come down
Mhm.
to stop raising rates or to cut rates. Inflation is coming down. 2022 June, it was 9.1. The last reading from, I believe, June 2023 was 3.1.
Mhm.
Have the rates come down? They have not. So it's like, what are they really after here? They've stated they need to see like a lot of job losses for inflation to come down, and that's just not the case because inflation has come down, and we're not seeing crazy job losses. So I think we still need to watch the labor market and see the unemployment rate or jobless claims, and once we hit a certain point on that, I think then we might see rates come down.
And that's kind of my concern because, like, we've leveled out, right? And so, at least temporarily, it's probably going to go up, but like prices have leveled out too, which is weird for the summer. So if the rates keep going up, does that mean it's going to start doing weird things, and no one knows? But what I'm seeing on my side, which is interesting, is that, like you said, a lot of people don't want to move. So a really significant number of people that at no point in their lives wanted to be landlords are now like, you know what? I'm going to be a first time landlord. I'm seeing a huge uptick in that. I've had a tremendous number of people, even here in Thousand Oaks specifically, asking me if I can help them manage their brand new landlords. And it's like, man, I haven't had those in years. And now all of a sudden I have a lot of people checking in on it. And so I want to share this guy here. I want to go back to my screen real quick. And I have AirDNA. This is how we track more or less how the Airbnb market is doing. We don't do the whole county because there's no tool to look at the whole county. You have to look at specific cities. So right now we have some really interesting changes in Airbnbs. There's 67 active rentals. Most people mark out Airbnb. Very few list on VRBO. Very few list on both. A very significant uptick in studios and people renting out rooms. Still a decent number of regular homes for sale too. But Thousand Oaks tends to be or Newbury Park down 320 at least, to be one of the best metrics for kind of an average for Airbnbs. The main reason for that is because we have Casa Conejo, a couple other parts like this little chunk right here that is unincorporated, so it's a little bit more free than the rest of the county is. Like Camarillo has really weird rules
in terms of their
so
regulations. Yeah.
yeah, so it tends to be our best metric for how stuff is doing. And when I take a look at like prices monthly, um, they're doing pretty good, right? I mean, our
Right.
monthly prices are going up. We're seeing more places professionally managed than unprofessionally, which is also kind of showing, people are willing to put the money in, or they're renting out a room in their own house, which is also an interesting situation. But when we compare back to 2020, we're at an all-time high in prices.
And you
We're
have people
also,
calling for Airbnb, that it's going to implode and all of that stuff.
yeah, but at least locally prices are going up, but we are occupancy rates down, right? Because if we're comparing July of 23 compared to July of 22, where we're at around here, it was at around 84%, and now we're at 78%. So there has been a flood of properties entering the market, and there is a slight downtick in occupancy, but prices are still going up. So they're still making about the same amount of money, right?
End of the day, yeah.
And what's really fun with Airbnbs is that it's like any other business. Certain rentals that have a lot of reviews and do really good make a lot of the money, and the other ones that don't do very good don't make much of the money. Like
It's
every
kind of like
business ever,
anything.
right?
Yeah, it's kind of like any business industry.
Right. So when we were to compare July, the top earner is making $15,000 a month. This is July 22, making $15,000 a month compared to the low end making $3,000 a month, compared to now when it's 14,000 and 1.7. So it's a downtick in their total monthly revenue, at least projected. It's not exactly accurate, right? These are estimates. But it is a slight decrease for the higher end and moderate end stuff. Actually, is the moderate end up? I think the moderate end is slightly up. So yeah, for most of the average Airbnbs, they're making more money. The ones at the very bottom much worse, and the ones at the very top are doing worse. And we just generally have a lot more Airbnbs on the market. Where we have, here we go, rental growth. So like as we're looking at the number of active rentals, when we were in Q3 of 2022, or I mean, really since the pandemic, it was 67 and the pandemic happened, right? And it fell down to like 50, 45, whatever. And then once we hit 2022, we grew from around 50 to around 90. And it still seems to be sustaining that, especially because more people are going on vacation.
Right.
So, we are seeing a tremendous number of people jumping into not just landlord market, but Airbnb and every other type of rental market.
Yeah. Short-term rental.
And, right now they're doing okay, but I'm wondering, how many of these people are going to figure out it's just not for them and sell it, because that cycle takes, 1 to 2 years for them to burn out.
Sure.
And we're getting to the end of that first year,
Okay, so that could be a source of, maybe it won't be substantial inventory, but it could be something.
I mean, I'm not going to say that it's small, but I mean, if it did go, like, let's say these 50 people listed their homes. If we're looking at like some of these communities that, there's 10 plus of these Airbnbs in, some of these communities have only had like 3 sales for the year, so even if a third of those Airbnbs went up for sale, which to be fair would be quite a bit, but also it's doubled, right? So I think it's a not entirely out of the ordinary number. That would essentially flood the market. Again, not that 50 is like, oh my gosh, that's so many, but you have to keep in mind that there's just so few for sale.
Yeah. And that's been the consensus from everyone. There's just not much out there.
Right. So Airbnbs aside, a lot of our folks out here like to see how their city's doing. It was really funny. I felt so bad on our last live because I ended it. I'm like, anyways, we're all done. Everyone's like, you forgot Simi Valley. I'm like, wow, they were watching and they cared. So, but anyways, looking at, I pulled the August for both of those. That was a mistake. That's okay. So one of our biggest winners this month was Westlake. While they aren't really out of the norm for most of the numbers, for the last couple months, our median sales price for Westlake was kind of low. It had the worst, basically was doing the worst out of everywhere else, right? So Westlake is, luxury. It's $1.4 million median sales price, and their stuff sat for a really long time. But when we look at year over year, even though month over month, we are still down slightly. We went from 1.43 to 1.44. Year over year, we're finally seeing some positive numbers, and we're seeing some decent sales. So the median sales price year over year has gone up 16%, which is huge.
That's impressive.
And so I don't know exactly what happened, but I do know that they had, where'd we go?
Were there some enormous sales that happened?
We had 2 sales this month that were over $3.5 million.
Okay.
And then we had we had a few that were like $3 million plus, right? And I think that really carried it. The last couple of months, we've had a lot of homes that were just sitting, and we're taking a long time to in Westlake. Westlake, again, luxury tends to take longer than not luxury. They're at like 44 days for their median, or like 22. So I think that they're still doing good. Their numbers are going to look funnier because their stuff's going to take longer. So, some people were kind of alarmed for a minute there, but Westlake's actually, year over year, you're doing great now compared to the last couple of months, because those homes just took a minute to sell, and now they've sold. We're kind of back to normal, Simi Valley is another very, very requested city. Let's see. Month over month, prices are down $10,000. But year over year, year over year, they're still down. They're down 4.76%. And from what I've been seeing, and we'll get into the other cities a little more detail too, typically the areas that are more affordable seem to be hit harder by these interest rates. But it's such a it's just not a straight answer, right? Because on one hand, the places that are more affordable, the regular buyers are having a hard time buying, but the investors aren't investing in Westlake because just the price point's too high. They're investing in these lower price points. So Simi Valley tends to get fewer investors than Oxnard. So Oxnard's getting propped up a little bit better than Simi Valley is. So it's not like a straight line here where it's just harder for first time buyers, but it is, and that seems to be what's impacting it the most. Then when we look at Moorpark's such a weird city because there's just not much out there, but even they had a price reduction month over month. They went from 845 to 827. Their absorption rate kind of spiked pretty solid here. Number of listings is up. Days on MLS depends on if you're looking at. So CDIM is the cumulative days on market. So that means stuff basically if it's under contract and then falls out of contract. So it's the total, it's what the real average or real median number of days is compared to just the DIM without the C on it. That just means that that's the days on market, from listed to sold if nothing goes wrong, right? So, it's still relatively high at 33, but it is going down even though they're having, more listings hit the market and prices have fallen slightly. And then year over year, their prices went down a lot, 11%.
Oh, wow.
Thousand Oaks, which is my baby. That's my home turf. Not that I don't love Moorpark and Camarillo. We're going to be doing
yeah, you called Moorpark weird. So
well, Moorpark's just weird.
You mean based on the data, I know. But...
Well, not just data, but it's just a weird spot because it's unless you live in Moorpark, you don't really go there.
It's not on the way to anywhere, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, they do have the new grocery store there. They do kind of have the new shopping mall, so it's getting bigger. But until I don't even know when that shopping mall was built 5 years ago. It really started getting filled out just before the pandemic. Before that, there was a couple restaurants and farms, Right. So that's why it's kind of a weird city because it's you pass by there if you're going into or out of Simi, right? But
right. I used to live in Fillmore, and I would go through Moorpark more often.
I mean, I'm a beekeeper. I go there to keep the bees all the time, but that's the only reason I'd ever go to Moorpark is to check on my bees and then come straight back to, civilization. But now that they have stuff, it's getting better.
Yeah, it's a nice spot. Anyways, I like Moorpark. It's quiet and a little slower.
If I could pick anywhere in the county to live in, I would probably pick either Moore Park or Camarillo.
Okay.
But Thousand Oaks had one of, again, the biggest month-over-month changes. Their sold median price dropped from 1.14 million to $920,000. So that's $100,000 drop month over month, which is
That's
nuts.
significant. Yeah.
They're seeing, the number of listings are relatively stable-ish. It's harder when the dots are all on top of each other. What's our pending or our new listings? Sold listings? Look at sold listings. Went from 72 to 51. Yeah, so the number of sold listings went way down, which is not characteristic of summer. Sold to list ratio is showing is up. That's just because the couple of properties that did sell, were underpriced. Absorption rate, again, starting more towards favoring buyers, kind of, but it's still 2. So still super strong seller's market, even though you're like, hey, it's better. It's still not good.
Right.
Days on market still way down. So, stuff that's priced fairly is selling, but that median sales price going down $100,000 is nuts.
I mean, what's the story on that? It's just,
Thousand Oaks and Newbury Park are not the same in as like Oxnard or Simi, but they're still more affordable than Westlake.
Right.
So if you have a 3-bedroom house, they're still selling for like $830,000, which is like typically a starter house. Now we're having more starter condos. But, if you've got a 3-2, 1,200 to 1,500 square foot house for sale, your buyers have to make like what, $15,000 a month or more to like kind of afford it.
Yeah, it's a little wild right now. Yeah.
So, they're still seeing stuff happen. And again, median sales price took a huge hit year over year. We're at a 10.46% price reduction. So, when you're talking about how it's like, oh, everything's up, everything's crazy. I mean, locally, that's several. It's basically the whole, east side of the county seeing like a 10% month over month price reduction.
Right. And now the Zillow is the prediction, right, moving forward. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if we're already seeing that, 10% decrease, that doesn't lead me to think that we're going to be, 6.2% increase.
Right. And we're seeing, there's one thing to keep in mind when I'm doing these too, is that we're pulling city data. Camarillo is like my perfect example of why I don't love city data, because like Santa Rosa isn't technically Camarillo.
Right.
So like for a lot of these areas, you're going to get skewed because it may or may not pull certain parts. Like I don't know if Newbury Park, because Newbury Park has like a bunch of unincorporated parts. I don't know if it pulls those when it does this data either.
Right. So, Newbury Park is weird in that way that it often, on maps, it doesn't come up as even Newbury Park, even though I know it's Newbury Park.
Well, that's City of Thousand Oaks, because City of Thousand Oaks has, even Westlake is considered Thousand Oaks in certain parts.
Right.
And then you have, on the other side, you have Newbury Park, which is still under the City of Thousand Oaks, but it's its own thing because it's its own zip code. And then within City of Thousand Oaks, you have a whole new development that's like a whole separate town called Dos Vientos. So you could be in Dos Vientos within Newbury Park within Thousand Oaks, which those still pull, but the parts that the data doesn't pull is the unincorporated stuff, the stuff that's not technically in the city. So like within Newbury Park, there's 2 different parts. There's Casa Conejo, and then parts of like up on the hill, like overlooking the whole place, are technically county land. And so sometimes the data pulls it and sometimes it doesn't. But like I said with Camarillo, I would still completely consider Santa Rosa to be part of Camarillo. I know that some people in Santa Rosa right now are probably like really angry at me.
And it's pretty big. I mean, the Santa Rosa Valley is not small.
Right. And it's the luxury homes. So like when we're looking at this, we're actually missing a big chunk of the luxury homes in Camarillo. We're really only looking at the stuff in town, right? But even for them, the number of listings is way down month over month. Again, not what we expect in the summer. The median sales price, again, big drop from $798 to $735. Our absorption rate is up, again, slightly favoring buyers. Granted, 1.26, one of the worst absorption rates in the county, right? But it's still trending up. Days on MLS, though, shows the opposite. Stuff's still selling quick when it's priced right. And when we look at year over year, the median sales price is down only 1%. But that basically wipes out the gains that we've been looking at all year, where everyone was saying, "Oh my gosh, it's going nuts and prices are skyrocketing." And then with Camarillo, my favorite thing in the world with them is their median days on market is 9. So despite all this other stuff going on, they are by far the fastest selling city.
9 days. That's not good in terms of the health of the market.
Ridiculous, but it's so counterintuitive seeing the prices drop, right? And I think the reason for that, I don't know this 100%, but I think the reason for that is because, like in Newbury Park, Thousand Oaks, Westlake, the luxury homes are mixed in with the affordable homes.
It's true.
But
yeah,
when we do this for Camarillo and we miss Santa Rosa, which is the bulk of the luxury homes, we're getting a lot more affordable stuff. So it skews the numbers.
If you were to average in Santa Rosa, yeah, it would not be 9 days. Absolutely.
Right. And then Oxnard, Oxnard's a little bit better, right? We still have the listings are kind of hanging in there from 65 to 54, but their listing prices skyrocketed. They went from $715,000 up to $799,000 as their median. I couldn't really find a good reason for that. I think with this earlier, I didn't look as in depth as I probably should have, but I really have no idea why that happened, and that's going to be a big reason why we're actually stable, is specifically because of Oxnard. Now, keep in mind also county data is pulling everything, not just the cities. We're also getting stuff from Ojai that I can't get a lot of access to because they're their own MLS and have their own stuff. So, basically the areas that we are seeing prices increase to offset all the cities we're talking about is the stuff that's not in these cities we're talking about, which, rural parts and farms and Ojai and stuff that's a little weird. So, even looking at like, oh, well, the price is stable in Oxnard, is Ventura going to? Yeah, Oxnard and Ventura. Those are the only two cities that went up, at least the main cities, right? We're not looking at like Somas. The big thing with Oxnard here, again, year over year, is nuts. They're up 10%. So that's some of the more affordable housing, up 10% year over year.
And I mean, that's in high demand, affordable housing.
It is, but there's the thing that bothers me is that when we're looking at affordable housing, like Newbury Park has some of the most affordable housing in the county.
People don't know that, right? Right. They're just not hip to it.
Right. And like Camarillo has the most affordable manufactured homes in the county. Moore Park and Simi, a lot of their parts of where they're at are very, very close to Oxnard. Not for houses, not for single family homes, but for condos. They're very competitive. So, the main difference here is East County versus West County and single family houses, right? And like looking at the historical data, the numbers are really the same. We had way, way more in the past between $6. We have a couple more luxury homes sell that are kind of maybe propping stuff up, but like the number of sales are still, not quite half, 40% less. But, I can't really think of a good reason why Oxnard, again, maybe it is because it's affordable relatively, right? But I can't think of a good reason that the sold median is going up, because even at the $799 average, like Camarillo's average was only, where'd it go? Let's see, sold price $735. Right. So at least according to this, the median sales price in Camarillo is less than it is in Oxnard. Granted, we're pulling luxury homes in Oxnard and not as many of the luxury homes in Camarillo.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, true. Yeah, well, it's like when clients come to me and they're typically younger, first-time home buyers. That's generally what they're like. Hey, Oxnard, Port Hueneme, because they know, they've been told that that's where you can get an affordable condo. Let's say a starter house. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's not like we think about Newbury Park or even Simi. I'll mention, hey, what about Fillmore? What about Santa Paula? Mm-hmm. But they want to be close to the coast. So yeah, that makes sense to me. Like that's where a lot would be happening, is down in Oxnard, Port Hueneme. especially for those first-time homebuyer
Yeah,
demographic.
and it does make me crazy because, like I said, like I'm not going to say they're the nicest communities, right? Because like they're the most affordable. But Newbury Park has two different condo complexes that are more affordable than almost anything in Oxnard, right?
And
And they're like
probably
always for sale.
safer, better location in terms of community and amenities, I would imagine.
I don't know. At least from my perspective, the low end of Oxnard and the low end of Newbury Park is really similar.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, Oxnard, you have bigger like metal gates around the whole thing, which kind of is off-putting.
Right.
You don't have that in Newbury Park, but in terms of the quality of the units and like the neighbors, it's really similar, and just people don't think to look there.
Right.
And then for our last city, because I always got to go through all of the, I know I say all the main ones. People in Ojai get mad at me. For you folks in Ojai, keep in mind that Ojai has its own MLS.
They have their own
So
MLS. Yeah.
I don't get full data to it. So when I do look at Ojai, I feel like I'm doing a disservice because it's just not pulling all of it. But that aside, our last city here is going to be Ventura. Again, a really big uptick in price. They jumped from 785 to 868. So basically Ventura and Oxnard propping up our prices while everyone else is going down, right? Number of listings went down just like everyone else. Again, bizarre for the summer. We are seeing more active listings, but we're not seeing more new listings. I want to see more new listings, which we're not seeing. Days on MLS, again, it's down. So the stuff that's selling super fast. The stuff that's not selling is just not selling. And our year over year price for the median is up 6.5%. So again, tremendous difference illustrated here between the East County and the West County.
Right. It's pretty diverse actually all across. But yeah, East versus West. What's going on there with the East? What's happening?
It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. I mean, I know that again, new buyers think they have to go to West County, which just isn't the case, especially as we're seeing prices drop. I mean, even the difference between Thousand Oaks and like what I do between Ventura and Thousand Oaks, where to go? It's like this almost the same price, because Simi's median sales price was 780 compared to let's look at not Camarillo, let's look at Ventura.
868, you said.
868. Yeah, I mean so it's not that big of a difference, So I don't know what's going on with that. So, for a lot of people that you're watching the news where it's like it's up, it's down, I hate it because you can go, well, we just looked at the city of Thousand Oaks and it's crashing. Or we looked at the city of Ventura and it's skyrocketing, right?
Right.
So
Hyper local.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone really knows what's going to happen. But, overall as a trend, we're seeing just weird behavior. And I think that weird behavior typically causes insecurity, which then causes more weird behavior,
Yeah. Well, just sitting on the sidelines, really. Because you're afraid to do anything.
So for the folks at home, do you think it's a good time to buy a house right now?
Here's what I think. I think that if you can afford to buy right now, right, with the rates, with the prices, you're comfortable with the monthly payment without causing you really much financial stress. It shouldn't cause you stress at all. I think now is a good time to buy. Yeah. And people say with real estate, when's a good time to buy? Yesterday, right? Like you want to get in, start building equity. And if Zillow's predictions and other predictions are correct, I mean, you're going to see values go up. The crash, as some of the YouTube people said, is coming. It's always coming, right? The data just tells a different story. So if it were me and I, just had a kid and I'm renting and I can afford to buy, I would absolutely buy. Because if you're waiting for rates to come down, when rates do come down, it's going to be like a mini, 2021, 2020, when it was just insane. Like you're not going to be able to compete. And even right now, as it is, things are moving pretty fast, and there's a lot of there's multiple offers, and so what do you think is going to happen
I
when
mean,
rates do go down?
so when I'm looking at buyers and sellers, there's like different sets, right? Because like if we're talking first time buyers, I'm only buying, I'm not selling, right? Like those types of buyers typically got to do something. Their lease is running out, they had a kid, they need more space, they've got to get a place. For those people, they're typically looking at, let's say, a 6 month window because they're not going to like, well, I'm going to wait till my kid is 15 before we add on a room. It's just not
Right,
going to
right,
happen,
right.
right?
They have some pressure
So
there. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I think if you're a buyer and you're looking right now and it's a first time buyer, I think there's enough volatility. I think that prices seem to be slowing down. We're entering our winter market early. I wouldn't hate the idea of waiting a couple months to see if prices soften a little bit. But what I would hate is waiting a couple months and seeing the rates go up because the rates are going to go up, right? So, I think a lot of people when they're thinking about buying, like hyper fixate on like, I need a good price, which is true. Everyone wants a good price. You can always refinance. There's all kinds of stuff like that. But when you buy, you're going to be super stressed out by your new payment. Almost everyone is the first year or three, right?
Right.
So, like for first time buyers right now, I think now is as good a time as you're going to get, at least in the near future. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, who knows, right? But
Right.
I think in the next,
All things considered, yeah. Why
yeah,
not?
I mean, like next 6 months, if you wait 6 months, maybe prices come down, but then rates go up. What progress have you made? Not much, right?
Right. They're
So,
predicting rates to come down, but there's just been so much volatility and unexpected things like, the bank thing that happened with Silicon Valley Bank, the United States debt rating or credit rating getting downgraded. There's
mhm.
all these other things that can mess with rates. When you think, hey, we're making progress, rates should come down. Throw in, a monkey wrench into it, and it's like, oh, wait, rates are back up again.
Right.
So yeah, there's so much at play.
So when it comes to first time buyers, though, like folks that are just buying for the first time, I think that if you do it now, you're going to have more selection in the winter because typically we see fewer homes for sale.
True.
So
Yeah.
if you're going to be if you want something in particular, if you're a Goldilocks type situation where you really want a house that's just like this, I don't think you're going to get a better price really if you wait until winter or wait until next year. I think that you're going to have about the best selection you're going to have for a long time right now. So I think it's a good time to buy in that respect. If you're an investor, I don't know what to tell my investors. My investors, I'm having the hardest time. I feel so bad because, like, for me, if I'm going to invest in a property, I really want to have a couple percentage of profit, right? So if rates are like historic, like way back when they're like 5%, I'm like, yeah, I want like a 7 cap, and I'm a pretty happy camper. Well, now we're like 7%, so you need like a 9 cap to get that same return. So if you're an investor and you're thinking about retiring, I think like now is the time, unless you want to wait until rates go down. Who knows when? What's your take on investors? Do you have an opinion on that?
That's a tough one, like you said. And of course, buying investment property, you're typically going to get a even higher rate than
Mhm.
someone who's buying, their primary residence. So there was a time when we were running numbers. This was a few months ago, on investment property. It was like, oh, you're going to get like a 9%.
Yeah,
So you've got to. It depends on each scenario what you're looking at, and you've got to run the numbers and see if it makes sense. But it's not as cut and dry as like, hey, this person needs a place to live. They need a
mhm,
place to raise their family. Because in
right.
that case, you don't look like a lot of people like to look at buying a home as through the eyes of an investor. It's like, yes, but first and foremost, a place to live and raise your family, right? And hedge
Mhm.
against inflation, lock in your payment, right?
Yeah, it's been tough because I've had
So
a couple different folks like, hey, I'm selling this multifamily or whatever, and it's like, what's the cap rate? It's like 7%. You like crunch the numbers, it's like you're gonna lose some money on that every month
right,
for a while.
right.
Like, can you do 9, which 2 years ago would be unheard of. And the sales price difference between a like 5 and 6 cap, which was selling, and like a 9 cap that you need now, that's like half the price, right? So brutal, brutal, brutal. So, if you're an investor, it seems like rates are going up. I think it's going to just keep getting harder. I think that a lot of people that are getting into rental properties that are like, yeah, I'm going to be a landlord, I think we're going to see a lot of them burning out and like really it not being their thing once they have to fix a sink for the 10th time or
Right.
clog a toilet again. So for investors, if you're not in it for the next couple years, now's the time.
Yeah. And
For
so
folks,
you're predicting, or you're thinking that rates will go up even more. Is that what you were thinking?
I think we're going to have it at least one more time. I don't, I mean, you're more on that than I am, but I think we're going to see 8% by the end of the year.
Really?
I think
Okay.
so. I mean, every time I watch stuff on the Fed and stuff, they're like, people aren't as uncomfortable as we thought. It's been a really soft landing.
Right. They even said we want people to feel pain, and
Exactly.
people are still spending, and it's not, people aren't feeling the pain that they were trying to inflict. I think
Right.
it will happen, but everything takes some time to have its effect. So their
And
their rhetoric has changed a little bit, and that's more of what influences rates than the Fed fund rate. It's not an exact correlation.
hmm,
And so by them slowing down the rate hikes to just 25 basis points, they're at least slowing down. So I think, and a lot of experts in the mortgage space think that kind of by the end of the year, maybe even November, December, we could see rates come down a bit. Um, Maybe not like 5%, but maybe high fives, which psychologically that's a lot better than seven, at least just how you think about it.
that would be nice. I mean, it's such a complex subject when we talk about rates because, like, as a business owner, like business loans are huge, and it impacts so many things. But I am starting to see I have a very close realtor friend who's actually one of my mentors for California. And when I talked with her the other day, she's like, "Yeah, I have all of my credit cards maxed. I'm behind on my mortgage, and the power bill hasn't been paid. We had a power outage, and I thought that they just turned my power off. Like, what's going on?" She's like, "I sold 3 houses this year. It's horrible." So, I think that a lot of people are hanging on, and that we are going to see a lot of uncomfortability. I think the holiday season is going to be a very big indicator for what they do with those rates because people are going
Right.
to spend because they're comfy, and then I think they'll raise rates or
Those
they're
spending, that spending data. Yeah. Yeah.
right, right. So I think that's going to be huge, but I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if it went up again. But those aside, when we're looking at because our three main demographics are going to, or four main demographics are investors, first time buyers, upgrader, downsizer, right? And then people just selling, right? So for the
Right.
upgrade downsize folks, I the only thing that really I feel like makes it a good or a bad time to sell is going to be your inventory and is going to be the rates. Because if the rates are going to be higher tomorrow, do it today because the rates are
Yeah.
going to be higher tomorrow.
Lock it in.
Because
Yeah.
usually when their prices go up everywhere. I know that we're seeing, kind of the opposite in our market update today with certain cities, but typically, as prices go up, they go up. As they go down, they go down. So for those folks, I'm usually more concerned about rates with it being relatively stable. I think that now is going to be a better time because you have selection. My number one issue I have with people upgrading or downsizing is where do I go? So I think that waiting until inventory is tighter will make it harder. So I'd rather see you doing it now than when you're going to go, I sold my house, but the perfect place isn't available. And I just sold my house I really like, right? So that makes a really weird dynamic. And then for the last group of folks that are just going to be the folks that have a property, mom and dads, whatever it is, they're just selling. Maybe they're selling, moving into retirement or whatever it
Out of
is,
state, out of the country.
out of state, out of country, into retirement home, whatever it is, but you're just selling. Um, Prices in some areas are going down, and we typically go down over the holiday season. Um, Again, not always, it's not always a tremendous amount, but in terms of just selling, getting the top dollar, seems like last month for at least East County or for East County was the time, right?
Right.
Everywhere else tends to go down after August. So if you're just selling, again, I think now's the time.
Okay.
So do you have any final thoughts or shout outs or things you want to bring to everyone?
It's just like it is a little bit of not a little bit. It's a frustrating time in real estate, with rates being so volatile, and just there's so many things that the rate affects, and I think one of those is the psychology of buying a home. It's just like, and that unprecedented, 3% up to 7%, and people are like, whoa, this is crazy, and people just decide to sit out.
Mhm.
And then the people who might maybe sell and then buy, as I said, they're sitting on that super low mortgage rate. So it's like, what? Unless you have to, it's very hard to budge those people. And
Well,
I get it.
California in general is the worst for that because of that proposition that doesn't let us increase property tax, you
Right.
know? So being locked in at a low property tax, locked in at a low interest rate, I mean, you're locked in across the board. In most areas, you see very high turnover rates, like 6% plus, because like
Sure.
you can sell your $1 million house and move into Leisure Village, and like your payment's way lower there, right? But out here, your payment's higher because now you're not locked into anything anymore. So, we historically have a tough time getting people to move, and most people only move when they have to. And so we are seeing fewer moves, but I don't think that's like an alien situation to us. That's always kind of
Right.
been
Right.
the trend, you know?
Sure.
So I don't think that's going to be like a big deal for us here. Now, for like Washington or for, other states that do reassess every year and like your property tax triples, it I think they're going to have a much harder time. But, I do expect us to start seeing more stuff hitting the market because majority of people selling are out of probate or someone's sick or someone had a baby, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the boomers are retiring in the
Mhm.
next few years, leaving the workforce, maybe leaving the state,
Mhm.
maybe leaving the country to retire. So those houses might come online. They will. So that might be, it's not going to be maybe next year, but in the next few years, that'll be something happening.
That's been my big concern, right? Because I want to say in my neighborhoods, it's like 30% of all of the owners are investors, just never going to
Hmm.
sell, right? And then around 30 or 40% of all of the homes owned are by people that bought, I want to say before the 90s, let's say 89. And
Right.
so they bought, if not first owner, their second owner, right?
Right.
And they've just lived there their whole lives. And those folks are starting to, move on one way or another, right? So it is very interesting to me to see, how that's going to change because there are people obviously that can afford $800,000 homes at 8% interest, but not that many. There's enough to pick up the like in my farm, the two that have popped up, right? But if we had a 5% turnover where there's 60, are there 60 people that could pick that up?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to think about. Um, I know I think about it every day, so it's a conundrum at the moment. Um, but I would just, last thing for me, if anyone's thinking about buying, but they don't really know where they're at, what they can afford, I'm happy to walk you through it and at least run the numbers for you and just see where you're at and maybe where you need to be to make a purchase. And I can sit down with you and create a roadmap for that. So
And it might be really important to do it now because and you can confirm this is true or not, but are they bringing back that Cal HFA thing again
yes,
this fall?
yes. So the CalHFA Dream for All Shared Equity Loan is what it's called.
Hmm.
Last time we had 300 million allocated for it, and it was gone in 11, 12 days. It went super fast. I think in our, we're a pretty small mortgage bank. We're local, we're small. And within our, you know, few branches, we did 13 of those, which proportionally to the state where I think there was a couple thousand done, we did a lot of them. So we're pretty good at those. So that's coming back in the fall. We don't know when. We don't know anything about the rate. Like we don't have any updates, but they're going to give us an update in the fall. And I think for first-time home buyers who maybe don't have as much money as they'd like for a down payment, this is an awesome program to get you into homeownership. It's kind of controversial. Some people don't like it, but I think it's a great way for people to get into a home. And so if you're interested in that program where they give you 20% to put down, get in touch and we can start preparing now. So when that kicks in, we're ready to move. We're not preparing and wasting time in that. So there's going to be even less money this time. So it's going to go even faster.
So, I mean, the thing that I feel like we really need to illustrate is that last time they had this, it was gone in a week, I think.
11 days, yeah.
And most of those people were in escrow before it opened, right?
I don't know if it was before it opened, but it was like everybody had to move super fast on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so regardless of how
you got to be ready,
right? This isn't something where it's like, hey, I heard the program's out. Like, can we start looking today? Like, it's not going to be like that. So
by the time we start getting you ready, it's going to be gone.
Yeah. So, you know, if that is something you're thinking about doing, if you're thinking about moving this fall, that program is available for just about everybody. At least it seemed like it's a very, very generous program. So if you are interested in that, absolutely reach out to, that way, it's reversed. Reach out to Colm because that's going to be a huge, huge deal. And it's not something you can just accidentally do or fall into, right? It's going to have to be really planned. We're going to have to be really strategic and on it. And for everyone else that is following our channels, what are you up to this month? You putting out any cool content?
I am. You can, most of my stuff I do on Instagram. It's Colm Fitzgerald _home loans. And I just give regular updates, talk about things that are going on in the market. YouTube, I'm at Mortgage FAQ. I'll probably do a couple videos this month. But yeah, just watching the market, watching the rates, and helping people as they come my way. I had a guy from Hawaii who's relocating to Ventura.
Why?
yeah. He's got a good job opportunity, but he was shocked because when he left Ventura, he's from Ventura, home prices were whatever they were. And it was shocking to him when I told him what prices are and what his payment would be. But yeah, people aren't really ready for the numbers when they hear them.
I cry every time I do these market reports because when I was looking at, what historically was it like in 2018, right? Like the median sales price in 2018 was $600,000.
Right.
Like just crazy. So then for everyone else that wants to follow my stuff, on my end, we're going to be covering a different topic every single month. This month for us is all about basically foreclosures. So what happens if you can't make your payment, or if you know someone that can't make their payment, and how do you, as a buyer, navigate that situation of possibly picking up a home for someone that's going through short sale, foreclosure, or auction? That's going to be our content primarily for the month, and also talking a lot about specifically Newbury Park. And we're going to do a different subject every month. So if you don't like foreclosures and short sales, all that fun stuff, last month was all about seniors. I don't know what next month's going to be about. I have to look at my schedule. But it's a new subject every month, and we're going to eventually cover something that everyone will like. So, closing thoughts, anything else for everybody?
Good luck out there.
Absolutely.
It's the Wild West, or, in actually the Wild East. Seems like there's some crazy stuff happening out there in the east part of the county. So,
for sure. Well, it's a pleasure having you here. And if anyone has any questions, you guys can always let us know. We're going to have both of our contact info, both in that button up here, and on the website. And if you need Colm's info, you can always look him up or just ask me with all my contact info, and I'll get that all over for you guys. So Colm, a real pleasure, and I will talk to you, well, hopefully before next month, but at least we'll do a live again next month.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.